When we think about change, the first thing that happens in change is we've got a huge decision that's being made, key players in that decision-making process, who then assert what the change is going to be, and we are guiding and directing other people through that change. Now, what we will always find in that process is that emotions are present. Emotions of resistance are present initially when we announce the change. So how do we actually shift how we communicate so that our assertiveness is much more influential and not as detrimental to psychology? Is we have to use psychology, but we also need to use our emotional intelligence skills in a smarter way. So assertiveness is generally the skill we're using when we're articulating and communicating a change. And this skill is supported by really key players of interpersonal relationships, empathy, and emotional self-awareness. And oftentimes we're driving assertiveness with this emotional self-awareness, like we feel strongly and passionately about something and the outcome we need. And so we assert through our emotions. For influential assertiveness, we actually need to turn to these two players and lean on these more heavily, the interpersonal and the empathy base. So let me show you why and how this works when it comes to human psychology and resistance in change. So we've got our problem, we figured out our solution to it, and generally what do? We assert the change that needs to happen in order to achieve the outcome or desired outcome. And when we do that, we get this experience or this part of our graph in which we have resistance to the change and we have emotional resistance to the change that we have to try and work through. And before we can work through that, we have to go through the valley of despair. So we have decreased performance, decreased engagement, decreased motivation. When we lean on our assertiveness through interpersonal relationships and empathy, instead of commanding what the change and decision is going to be to get to that outcome, we actually present the problem, define what we need to achieve as an outcome, and ask, help me figure out the path that we utilize to achieve that. And when we say those two beautiful words, we are leaning on the interpersonal relationship. We're leaning on the capacity for us as a group to utilize our empathy skills to understand not just each other, but understand the outcome we need to reach so we can enter into collaboration. And when we do that, what ends up happening is everyone's emotions move into creativity, optimism, possibilities. And when we do this, we are tapping into internally serotonin and oxytocin, which are connection collaboration hormones, rather than a dopamine hit. So the next time you are needing to communicate a change or communicate a directive, think about altering your language and your approach so you can tap into the emotions that drive energy, motivation, creativity towards action, rather than the emotions that move us into resistance.